Heroes on the Warp. The battle to save Cartoon Network universe rages on right now. Unite online at FusionFall.com to engage in a mission like no other. FusionFall, rated everyone 10 and up. The time is now. The hero is you.
Hey guys, the NAS Blast here, back with part 2 of the FusionFall Nasty Analysis. Now, if you didn't watch part 1, go do that, because it's very important. Originally, this was one big, massive video, but of course, in that video, I explained why I had to split it into 2 parts. Unfortunately, I had to do it. I don't really have any other choice, but here we are with part 2. So if you want to experience the first half of the game, you know, the suburbs and the city area and the beginning future section, then go check out part 1. And this one, we're going to jump right into the wilds section, the third part of the map. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and explore some more FusionFall. Like I said before, around the mid-game, you kind of go back and forth between the downtown and wilds sections of the map, sometimes in the same quest lines, but the wilds does lead into the in-game sections of the map. The wilds is kind of split up into 2 environments, the first half being jungle, and the second half being the wastes. I was actually excited to see the first few areas of the wilds, because most of the areas are representations of another one of my favorite shows as a kid, Camp Lazlo. So of course I'm excited to see what these characters would look like as anime characters, especially this guy. Unfortunately, after going through Prickly Pines and making it to Camp Kidney, none of the actual Camp Lazlo characters can be found. Not a single one. Even though pretty much the entire first half of the wilds is made up of areas from that show. Leaky Lake, Acorn Flats, and Pimpleback Mountain, all being from Camp Lazlo. They did my boy Lazlo dirty in the character department, but at least he got more areas out of any other show in the game. Although the Orange Monkey himself isn't here, there are other characters here. The characters at Camp Kidney are the Toilet Nader and May Kanker. Weird combo, but May is out here trying to track down the great lost hero, Ed. So, props to her. Leaky Lake is pretty much just a big swampy infected zone and only has Fuzzy Lumpkin chilling on the side, who actually gave me one of the most infuriating quests involving climbing all the way up this giant tree in Acorn Flats. This looks like it's gonna be a— oh no! Almost fell off! Doesn't help that my guy's gotta moan every single jump. And then jumping down in a time trial to kill like 6 of these snake things, and they would spawn really far apart, and the only groups that would spawn would have a boss in the middle that would just decimate me. Plus, there were no nanostations around, so I got caught in a death loop of dying and running out of time, and it was just rough, man. This had me crashing out almost. Okay, there's not even like a nanostation over here to switch my shit up. There's only one patch of them that spawns 3, and it has a boss in the middle of it. 1. Great. There's another group, well guess what? There's a fucking boss in the middle of it, and he's just gonna one-shot me. I can't even switch my fucking nanos up, dude. This is actually pissing me off. There's no spot to switch my nanos over here. It's probably the worst mission I've had to encounter so far. Maybe the strategy is to die over and over again. It's actually working. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to complete it though, considering I only have 40 seconds. Just gonna wait for it to run out of time and then quickly kill this one. Unless he kills me, I mean, that's a very high possibility too. Oh wait, that's a boss. That's a boss. Oh my god! Dude, are you fucking kidding me? I had to take a break after this. The only other area around here from an actual show though is, like I said, Pimpleback Mountain, which is from Camp Lazlo. And man, that show just had fantastic names. Only characters of interest that's hanging out here is Gwen. Just out here all by herself with nothing of interest around other than this infected zone, which is one of the cooler looking ones, I guess. The rest of the jungle areas are FusionFall created. The Haunted Ridge, the Ruins, the Twisted Forest, and the Really Twisted Forest are all completely new. Most of them are what you expect, although I do like how the trees in the Twisted Forest look. I was sure this had to be from something, but I guess I was wrong. There aren't many cartoon characters out here at all, and most of the interesting ones are at the hub zone of the wilds, Mount Blackhead. Just another great name. This is a jungle base that the K&D had set up and is being supervised by number 3 and number 4. Also, Mac and Coco from Foster's Home is here. Mac is only here because he followed Coco and is now trying to protect her because Fuse is actually targeting her specifically. She, out here, of all the characters, is the most valuable. mainly for her ability to create anything out of the eggs she drops. Her eggs even drop power-ups and is the main form of power-ups and collectibles in the game. Chances are you'll find her red cocoa eggs littering the streets, and if you pick one up, they'll give you one of 6 temporary nano effects. They being Guard, Bigger Jumps, Run Speed, Antidote, which makes fusion poison not affect you, Freedom, which protects you from enemy effects, and then the worst one being Radar, which just shows you where enemies are. Yeah, buddy, I can see them. I say cocoa eggs are collectibles too, but not really. At least it's the closest thing to them in this game. I am referring to the golden cocoa eggs that you can find in some spots, which drop random cosmetic items when you pick them up. So they are worth the pick up if you see them, and are usually hidden in special looking areas. But yeah, Fuse wants all this cocoa power to himself, and has his minions gunning for her. But luckily there's another powerful character that is also here at Mount Blackhead. The hero, known as Ed, is here, and has proclaimed himself king of the jungle. God bless you, Ed. With you here, Coco is in good hands for sure. Also, the weird purple lip tree from Courage the Cowardly Dog is here, hanging out with Ed, so that's something. And so is one of the eggplant dudes, Bob O'Ganoosh, so hell yeah. And with that, we can journey on to the second half of the wilds, the areas I call the wastes, beginning with Devil's Bluff and Devil's Canyon. Pretty much just a wasteland canyon area with a cliffside town inside. The characters that reside here are Mandy, Haas Delgado, and Hex from Ben 10. Haas Delgado is trying to hunt down Coco because she looks like an evil creature working for Fuse, while Mandy is out here to prevent Mojo Jojo from creating a mutant army to rule the world, pretty much just because that's what she wants to do. And then Hex, yeah, I don't really know why he's out here, or why he's even involved. I never really took him for a major Ben 10 villain, and honestly his daughter is probably more of a reoccurring character than he is, and probably would have fit better. But hey, at least he looks cool. Making our way through the canyon, we find ourselves at the desert section of the map. This being Nowhere. This is where our boy Courage is, just chilling at his house with Juniper Lee and Kevin 11 because his car broke down. Muriel and Eustace aren't seen. It makes sense that they're just chilling inside, completely oblivious to everything happening outside. Pretty cool to see it as an actual location in the game. But every area connected to here is pretty ass. We got a giant infection zone with Area 51.1 that takes the form of the Titanic and a ton of cannon platforming, which is just the worst. I haven't really gotten into it before, but one of the worst things to come across during these platforming sections are cannons. It's so hard to judge exactly where they're going to shoot you, resulting in you failing a few times and having to go all the way back to where the cannon is. Need some cheese. Oh, what the hell's going on, dude? I'm flying. What? And anything that makes these long, boring platforming sections longer is just painful. You can't even use a mount in these areas, so you're moving super slow unless you want to waste one of your only nano slots on a run nano again, which by this point in the game is just a waste of a slot. By the time I got a mount and no longer needed a run nano, I pretty much kept 3 types of nanos on me for the majority of the game. It's not that I didn't want to try others, I did, but I just ended up regretting it most of the time I tried something new, because I only have the 3 slots and I need one of the other main nanos I usually have. That being a heal nano, a sneak nano to get around enemies in fusion portals, and then the XP boost nano, which is highly necessary to level up consistently. Every now and then I switch in a double jump nano for platforming sections, but for the most part, that was how I rolled. So if there was another thing I could add to this game, it would be more active nano slots. Maybe by unlocking them or something, I don't know. 3 just seems like too little. I feel like having 4 or 5 on you would go a long way. Anyways, Area 51.1 kinda sucks, and also the underground areas in Nowhere suck too. The lower and upper catacombs. These places are a bitch to navigate while being swarmed with tough enemies, as well as quests that are hidden in these pipes where chicken and eggplant villagers are. I hate these areas, and they're boring. The last 3 sections of the wild go back up through the jungle, and is at the very tippy top north part of the map. These are the Monkey Foothills, Monkey Mountain, and the Forgotten Falls. The latter being probably one of the most interesting FusionFall created zones, with a giant floating stone staircase that goes down to a couple islands with a giant water vortex in the middle of it. Unfortunately, the only thing over here is a fusion portal for Fusion Mac, of all people. And that's it. Never to come back here ever again. The Monkey Foothills is the real last area of the main overworld, alongside its giant infection zone, Monkey Mountain. It's pretty much just a mountain area with some lava here and there, and a bunch of mutated monkey enemies. The only character here is Spider Monkey, of course. And yeah, there's not much else here. except for a giant sea serpent, but before we interact with that, we're going to need some more nanos. The next batch you get mainly in the wilds are Mandy, Coco, Mac, Number 3, and Hex. All nanos I didn't use too much except for Mac, because he has a sneak ability. This brings us up to level 29, and to get to level 30, we're going to need to use this giant, highly detailed sea dragon thing known as the Kumari Serpent, and travel to the hidden fourth and final section of the map, the Darklands.
Drumstick or dagger. Depends on the war. The battle to save Cartoon Network universe rages on right now. Unite online at FusionFall.com to engage in a mission like no other. FusionFall, rated everyone 10 and up. The time is now. The hero is you. FusionFall.com.
This is a dangerous and highly contaminated area, and is where Fuse first began his invasion. This is the in section of the game, and sadly is probably the worst section. There is some cool stuff about it. I mean, it is threatening with the dinosaurs and in-game type stuff around, but it just doesn't have any connections to the actual Cartoon Network universe. Like, all these areas are brand new FusionFall created places, and there aren't many recognizable faces around here either. But we'll start off with the first couple of places you do go through. The very first location you step foot in is the Forsaken Valley, which is a pretty badass name, I won't lie. This is also where the main hub of the Darklands is at, on top of this flying ship built by Mandark Industries, a war vessel carrying heavy artillery and a couple of our strongest heroes. This is where we are greeted to Tetrax from Ben 10, the guy with the dope-ass hoverboard, and then the main man himself, Samurai Jack, one of the only heroes to make it to the very end in the future. Also one of the many Echoes in the Darklands, but Samurai Jack and Tetrax are the main characters here, and will give us most of our quests from this point on. We even find out here that Fusion Samurai Jack was the first fusion ever made, and is perhaps one of the strongest, if not the strongest fusion, and is hiding out here in the Darklands somewhere. Before we get to him though, we will have to travel through some of the most treacherous areas of the game. Dinosaur Pass, the Fire Swamps, the Fire Pits, and to Hunter's Crest, where we are greeted to another character from a series, Demongo, the Soul Collector, an adversary to Samurai Jack, but someone who knows a lot about weapons and ways of fighting against Fuse. He pretty much acts as a stand-in for Aku, who does not make an appearance in this game, and is remarked as being an individual on the level of Fuse himself, which makes sense. I mean, that is one villain I can't imagine teaming up with the good guys, considering he does something very similar to Fuse in turning the world into a hellscape in the future, so understandable why he isn't included. But it would have been cool to see a giant Aku model somewhere, like a sub-boss or something. Oh well. The worst thing about Demongo here though is that he introduces us to my most hated infected zone in the game, the Dark Glade. This is the largest infected zone in the game, and it definitely feels like it too when you can't use your mount, which by this point in the game are pretty fast and you've probably gotten used to their speed. Just to walk around this giant area with a giant crater in the middle of it you have to avoid, it's just, sometimes you move so slow, and some of these infected zones are just so big that if you want to go back to the start, it's actually faster and more beneficial literally to just let the monsters kill you so you can respawn at the exit. And times like this, dude, just let them kill you. Just let them kill you, because watch. Watch this. Back at the beginning, no repercussions too, so I am out. A smooth getaway. But it doesn't really work here too much. If I'm not mistaken, this is the only infected zone with 2 respawn points. So if you die on the opposite end of the exit, that's where you're going to respawn, on the opposite end. So no matter what, it's a long ass walk, making this place that much more annoying. This is, however, where Fusion Jack is held up, in the dead center platform in the crater. Most of the boss fights in this game are pretty much the same, just with different looking attacks. The combat in this game is pretty dry, and I guess it's about time I go over it. So first off, you can't attack an enemy unless you lock on them. Unless you have a rocket launcher or a grenade weapon, which you probably won't because they kind of suck, the main weapons you're going to use are pistols, rifles, shatter guns, and maybe a melee weapon, but I wouldn't recommend melee either. Some of the melee weapons look cool, but there's no reason to ever burden yourself with that shit. You have 2 weapon slots that you can switch between, and in my experience, the best ones to keep on you are a shatter gun in one slot and then a rifle or a pistol in the other slot, whichever one you have that does more damage, but a rifle is preferable because it gives you a little bit more range. So your rifle or pistol is for fighting single targets, and the shatter gun is like an AoE attack that can lock onto 3 targets. This is the way to go. You would never need a melee weapon because you have no range and have to be right up on the enemy to hurt it. You can't block or dodge, and enemy attacks always hit you, especially if they're a ranged enemy. All you can do is tank their hits. But at least with melee enemies, you can avoid some hits with a ranged weapon before they get to you. There's also a big connection with nanos and enemies, having a lot of the same abilities and also a type effective chart. There are 3 types, and this goes for nanos and monsters. We have red, which is Blaston's type, blue is Adaptium, and then yellow, which is Cosmix. And the cycle of effectiveness is like rock, paper, scissors, with blue being effective on red, and red being good on yellow, with yellow in turn being good on blue. But does the effectiveness really matter? Well, not really. It could certainly help, but I didn't even figure out this was a thing until I reached the Darklands. The only time it ever really could help is when a monster does what is known as a corruption attack. That's when a monster gets invincibility frames for a few seconds while charging up an attack while glowing one of the 3 colors. While it's charging up, this is your opportunity to switch to a nano that resists that type. And if hit while that nano is on you, the nano's meter will charge and the monster will take some damage. This could be helpful, especially since I didn't know this playing through and just got pissed when they got invincibility frames. And whenever I did figure out there was super effectiveness, I got the type chart wrong, so it didn't really help me out much. Anyways, you can play through and even beat the game without even knowing this is a thing. And this kind of goes for a lot of things in this game. There was a lot of things that probably would have been a lot more helpful early on if I had known, but I didn't find out until I was doing research on this game until around the end point. And that goes for the type effectiveness, and also goes for the fact that there are things called nano potions. Yeah, this number down here by the nanos, apparently if you press C on a nano while it's out, it'll restore its bar. Around the end game, I figured this out and it was very helpful, but also there's times where you don't have any nano potions, sometimes where you have a lot of nano potions. You get them from defeating enemies, but enemies can also take them away from you from using certain attacks or whatever. And you can also buy them from vendors, which is pretty useful. But if the nano is used up and is out of energy, you can't use the nano potion on it until it like recharges at least like a third of the way. So most of the time you still have to wait for them to recharge anyway if you don't have any nano potions. But those are just 2 things that I did not learn until very late into the game. But nanos can definitely help out with combat, but I didn't find myself using many combat nanos in my playthrough. That is until around the end when I didn't need an XP nano anymore. But like I said, some enemies can have these combat powers too. So let's go over all the combat abilities monsters and nanos can have. And for each one of these combat abilities, there's 3 different forms that they can be. That being a point, area, and cone. In the case of for pure damage nanos, point is focused on one target and does the most damage. Area is locking on a target and then damaging all surrounding enemies to that target. And then cone is affecting all enemies in the player's path. So like a beam attack. And of course, area and cone being AoE damage does less than point damage. Not all abilities have all 3 form types available, but all combat abilities will have at least one of them. These abilities are Drain, which makes targets slowly lose health over time. Leech, which damages a target and restores some of your health. Sleep will of course put monsters to sleep and make them open to critical hits, which honestly I didn't even know that was a thing. There's no stat for crits in this game, so that's completely news to me. But with the sleep ability, monsters will wake up after being hit once, so that's the downside to it. And then we got Stun and Snare, which Stun is just the better version. Stun completely stuns the target for a few seconds, while Snares just slows them down along with their attacks. Yeah, I'd probably rather have Stun for sure. Those are all the basic combat powers, but since we're on the subject, let's go ahead and cover up the other abilities nanos can get as well. These other powers come in 3 different forms too. Group, Self, and Self Area. In a healing nano's case, Heal Self is obviously healing yourself. Heal Group will heal your whole group as long as they are in the area, and then Self Area heals all players close to you even if they're not in your group. This goes for the other abilities we've already gone over too, like Run, Freedom, Guard, Antidote, Jump Boost, Rocket, which Rocket is a double jump power, Radar, Sneak, Revive, and Recall, which allows you to recall to certain locations in an infected zone. The last few abilities I'll go over are ones that I haven't mentioned, or mentioned very briefly, like Scavenge and Bonus. Scavenge giving you more XP, and Bonus giving you more Taros, which is the money in this game. There's also a Treasure Finder ability that helps locate cocoa eggs on the map. And then the last ability is one that was actually recently added. that being a dash move that lets you dash forward. And yeah, that is all of the nano abilities, which all can be powered up for a brief time using a gumball of the same type on that nano. These gumballs can be found in these basic loot boxes you get from defeating enemies, or can be bought from Dexbot vendors. But I mainly use my gumballs on my XP boost nanos anyway, before I turn in quest. It doesn't do much, it just brings that 20% boost up to 24%, but I'll take all the XP I can get, man. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about nanos. And after getting the next few in the Darklands, mainly being Juniper Lee, number 4, the legendary Ed, and Courage, we can make our way to Fusion Jack, the fusion that calls the Darkglade their home, and acquire the Samurai Jack and Nano. He was the first fusion made, and the first fusion to give me kind of a hard time. Oh, Courage. Juice up, Courage, please. Oh, juice me up. Oh, almost there. Come on, get him. Oh, that was actually a close fight, dude. But after defeating him and acquiring the Jack Nano, I now have an attack nano worth using. It is now time to make our way to the final zones of the game, starting with the last sort of central zone where characters are gathered. This is the Precipice. This is where most of the Echo Echoes are gathered, where the plan is to nuke Planet Fuse with a major sonic boom. Another character that's here is Albedo, the negative red version of Ben 10, who actually has some of the most unique quests in the game. The first is one where you have to hunt down a Fusion Echo Echo, the only enemy that just kind of roams around the area without telling you where one is. And then he has a mission where you have to fight a ton of different monsters without a tracker, and then a fake out mission where you gotta defeat like 300 monsters in a minute. His quests are the only ones like this. Pretty much every other quest in the game goes like, defeat these monsters here, talk to this guy, or go to this fusion portal, with the occasional time trials. Pretty much the basic MMO defeat and collect quests we're all familiar with. But leaving the Precipice takes us into the final open area, Heroes Hollow. This is where the remnants of the first major battle against Fuse is located. Ships and destroyed artillery litter the landscape, and this is where the first major loss and travesty of the Fuse invasion happened. And the crazy part is that the side of good could have won and ended this at the very beginning, but one character got in the way, and all the lives lost on that day from this battle, and even afterwards, are all on them. The character that caused this loss to happen was none other than Cheese, who is still stranded out here in the rubble. Apparently Cheese was at the battle, but was in search for a vending machine, and when pressing a bunch of buttons, turned off all the shields to the hero's forces. This causes Dexter, who was in charge of the battle, to banish Cheese out here. And this ended up putting a bad taste in Dexter's mouth when it comes to imaginary friends, pretty much making him a little racist toward them. Out of all this shit that's happened and the battles fought, Cheese is the one responsible for the most casualties. And even when we end up fighting Fusion Cheese and putting him down like a rabid dog, I can't help but feel bad for the Fusion Cheese, because nothing he did compares to the atrocities that the original is responsible for. Anyways, after dealing with Cheese, who is in fact the last actual Cartoon Network character we run into, we journey into some of the last fusion portals, one including Fusion Damongo, who we defeat giving us Nano Aku, and then we find Fusion Kevin 11's lair, where he plans to nuke Foster's home. Fortunately, out of all the heroes to come and save the day, it's Billy who somehow shuts off the machine by accident and then allows us to get through a force field to defeat Kevin. Now we must enter the final infected zone before Fuse's lair, that being the Green Maw, an area where Dexter's Sky Freighter is, but taken over and consumed by fusion matter. Once getting through the tedious parkour and experiencing fast-moving platforms for the first time, we get to the freighter and challenge Fusion Tetrax to acquire the 36th and final Nano, Humongosaur. With all Nanos acquired, it is time to go back to Jack and get the final missions to infiltrate Fuse's lair. But before that, we gotta go back to the Green Maw and do all that platforming all over again just to get to the top of the freighter to enter another fusion portal. But this time, it is the ultimate test. Before going to Fuse's lair, we must defeat a trio of some of the most dangerous fusions ever created. At once, we must battle the Fusion Eds. If you do it right though, you can whittle them off one at a time. Eddie and Double D aren't much of a problem. But Ed is a different story. His power erupts out of him, and he's the strongest of all the Ed fusions, and perhaps all the fusions together. But, for the good of the world, I had to shoot him 49 times in the head, finally putting him down. We passed the test. Now it is truly time for the final battle. We must travel over to Fuse's lair, where there are 3 fusion portals back to back at its front gates. We must go in each one, fighting enemies and meeting up with other characters who have ventured inside. Billy is the first we encounter. He is in here with his imaginary friend. Yeah, he has acquired one, and it is one of the most powerful there is. He is an imaginary friend in the shape of a fusion spawn, and his name is Runty. And with the power of Runty, we can blast through the main entrance and continue on to the second portal. Here we have a rematch with Fusion Demongo. When defeated, drops a cocoa egg he had gotten his hands on. Fusion Demongo drops something. An egg.
Hey, it's Mac.
It's one of Coco's special eggs. Bring it here to me quick. Mac, how'd you even get in here? Mac is inside Fuse's base too for some reason, and explains to us what this egg is, for it is no ordinary cocoa egg. This egg holds inside nothing we can see, but in fact holds us, the players, pure imagination in its most raw form. And with this imaginary power, we can bust into Fuse's main chamber, where we can finally fight the final boss of the game, Fuse himself. We battle alongside Samurai Jack, in story, not gameplay, through the base to Fuse, where Jack is then injured by Fuse's forces, leaving us to fight Fuse by ourselves. And he is a monster. The largest monster I've seen in the game, besides those one-off raid bosses at the very beginning. His arena is the most unique in the game too. It's almost like a concert stage. The fight itself is a challenge though, especially with just one person. And honestly, in doing this alone, you're probably gonna die a few times. But I had my nanos on my side. The nanos I took in with me for this final fight was Courage for my heals, Mac to help me sneak between enemies to get to him, and then Humongosaur for that massive AoE damage. And man, that damage did help out a lot in this final fight. I am in range. I can't even tell if he's hurting me or not. Oh, I hit him! I hit him! Wait, what is going on? I died! Where do I go? All the way from the beginning. Fuse has 3 phases to his fight. Once you beat him the first time, one of his arms falls off and becomes a new enemy. And the second time you beat him, his other arm does the same thing, having the final phase be you versus 3 boss enemies. Okay, it looks like it's still in his other phase. Oh, dude, he keeps killing me. What the fuck? Dude, right off the bat, I'm getting like fucked up. Oh my god. How am I supposed to fucking do this? I can't do this alone. I'll try to sneak up on him. Because I touch the ground too.
See you later. Here you go. Here you go. What's this?
I think I'm almost got him. I think I kind of see a strategy here. I have got to lock in, dude. I'm almost out of gumballs for my boys. It took me a few tries, but with the magic combo of Max sneaking up to him to get a good hit in, and then switching off between Courage and Humongosaur while spamming my Shatter Gun, plus with the help of some gumballs, I finally managed to defeat Fuse, save the in-game world, and finally beat the game. Almost dead, almost dead, almost dead. Got him. We did it!
Here you go.
It is done. Victory is ours.
FusionFall is an awesome game where you can interact with the Cartoon Network cartoons, do missions,
All the Cartoon Network characters, and I mean all of them.
in one world, and then there's this other world ruled by some evil overlord named Fuse.
And he basically destroyed our Earth.
Taking over the whole entire world. There's all this fusion stuff everywhere. It's green slime.
Ugh, it's just gross.
And it's up to you to save the world.
I have a really great story. Okay, it was me and my buddy.
I was like down to this much energy. He gave me a boost real quick, and they were all snapping at me. And
All of a sudden, I jump up. I said, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Oh yeah. And then I went like that.
like, come on.
And it was crazy. Bang, bang, blast. We ended up completing the mission together because I had a buddy with me.
I love those missions.
FusionFall. All 36 levels, all 36 nanos, all free. Rated everyone 10 and up.
This game was in fact a grind. And it took me a lot longer than I thought it would to beat, but I don't know what I was expecting. This is an MMO, and they are kind of known for being grindy and long. I've went on about the characters of the game and the things I enjoyed and was interested in, but it is now time to talk about some of the things I didn't really enjoy as much. And in no way is any of this negativity directed toward the current devs of Retrobution. They have been putting in work, dedicating time to resurrecting this game, and have pretty much been working with what they had, and even have made a ton of improvements on things while I've been working on this analysis. So some of the things I'll critique will probably be updated and polished later on after this review's out. But dedicating that time to working on a game that's not really making money and working on it passionately with the goal of preservation is pretty dope, and I respect it. You guys that work on Retrobution, if you're watching this, you're doing God's work. Most of my critique would mostly be toward the original developers that made the game in the first place. So with all that said, let's get into my greatest gripe with the game as a whole. And that is that it is very insanely slow. Everything about this game is slow. And everything is made to make your progress slow for artificial playtime. And I'm not talking about pointless side quests. I mean, that is to be expected with an MMO. If anything, this game doesn't have enough side quests, being as you're really scraping for XP around the end. Now, first of all, the journal. I went over it before, but it is a big issue. You get only 4 quests to put in there. We need to bump those numbers up, people. They have you needlessly going back and forth between areas just to get quests you could have gotten and completed the first time around, going to the same areas that you're turning in quests, and then you get those quests which take you to the place you were just at, and it's just an annoying cycle, man. Amplified by just how shit the transportation is. For the beginning of the game, you pretty much rely on number 2 at all times to help you run around a little bit faster. But that doesn't last too long. And when he runs out of juice, his stamina bar is so slow to replenish. And man, the walk speed, I've said it before, but the walk speed is atrocious, man. It's so bad. So unbelievably slow. And every area and place is just so big and open, and makes it feel like walking to places just takes so much more time, it's just that much slower. You can get a mount, but fast ones aren't really acquired until closer to the end game. So for the majority of the game, you're either running back and forth between these long distances, or taking the monkey travel system, which, that sucks too. The current devs did take notice of this though, and has made it better than it was with the addition of turbo mode, where they get quicker with more money. Monkey flight still, though, is bad, and I hate doing it. You pay these monkeys to take you away to locations, and you just sit there and wait for a few minutes until you can land. It's faster now for sure, but the normal flight and how it was before was just so unbelievably slow, man. I hated doing it every single time. It made it so I had to play this game a certain way. You have to make sure you get all the quests you can in an area before going anywhere else, just so you can maximize time efficiency and avoid monkey travel. And the monkeys can't just travel to any monkey you want. The monkeys are just super picky about where they're going to take you. Now there's 2 ways I could say that you can make this a lot better. I would prefer if every monkey travel station just worked like the K&D buses, where you just teleport directly to the selected location. I mean, that would be nice. But if you can't do that, at least just have it so we can jump off the monkeys at any time, instead of waiting for it to cut all these sharp turns and corners and slowly descending to a landing. Yeah, monkey travel sucks. And those are my 2 thoughts on how to do it better. But that's not all that is slow in this game, man. Every infected zone that has platforming is littered with the slowest moving platforms you can imagine. Up until like the very last infected zone that has fast moving platforms. Yeah, it's literally the worst, most boring platforming you can ever possibly imagine. The best thing about platforming games is building momentum and getting a flow to your jumps and running and all that stuff. But nothing stops that flow more than having to wait for the slowest moving platforms. A lot of times you can just cheese around some of these areas though, with a double jump nano, making them pretty useful. You're going to be spending what I'd say probably like 80% of the game waiting in monkey travel or waiting for a moving platform. You're also waiting for a nano to recharge, or waiting on a monster to drop something for a mission, because some of these drop rates for these missions are horrible. And I've got to get like 3 growth samples from them. I've got 1, but I am having trouble. The drop rates are abysmal. Absolutely trash. Dude, I need 3.
Very well.
I've got 1. Like, you know, I could understand, I guess I could understand drop rates being ass. You just have to find one thing. But 3? Dude. Fighting these things. Dude. These drop rates. Holy shit. Dude, are you fucking kidding me? I spent more time killing these things over anything else, dude. Why? It should not be taking this long. Oh my god. Let's see, what else is slow? Oh yeah, the map. The map used to be horrendously slow to just moving through it and looking around, but in a recent update, the dev team did fix it to where you can drag around the map, making it a lot easier and faster to look around, so good on the dev team for fixing yet another horrible issue that the game had. Another thing I disliked a lot was how every fusion portal, which serves as all the boss dungeons, all very linear, jagged caves with a monster every 5 feet that you either sneak past or fight one at a time. And sometimes you can't sneak past them. They just see you for some reason. And then at the end, every single boss pretty much acts the same and just looks different. But I think those were my biggest issues with the game. I guess the best part of the game is just the visual stuff. Seeing the characters in the style and interacting with other characters, seeing what nano I was going to get next and what new area I'll recognize from one of the shows. Most of which was a lot better early on, and this may explain why I never got too far in the game and stopped at certain points. The novelty and nostalgia definitely wears off. It's cool seeing Peach Creek in the Sector V treehouse, Camp Kidney, Foster's home, but somewhere around the halfway point, we stop seeing these areas from the shows and start seeing more generic set pieces. Nowhere is the last iconic area, and then everything after it is just the usual in-game areas in video games, which makes the game more of a drag. Plus, I don't care about getting missions from these random K&D operatives or plumbers from Ben 10 or Dexbots. I want to see the real characters. Those are the characters I want to get missions for. I know there's more characters and more nanos can be acquired in the Academy update that you can play on Open Fusion's main server, but I only stuck with Retrobution, so I don't know much about that stuff. But another thing that's kind of lame in all versions of the game is the stat system. All gear acquired helps with like one of 3 stats. Shoes, shirts, and pants all affect defense stats, which is just the one defense stat. While weapons have stats for fighting one enemy or multiple enemies. And yep, those are the stats. There's no crit stats or different types of defense or anything like that. It's just those. But every other piece of gear too just doesn't give you anything. Like backpacks, hats, glasses, they're all cosmetic and they never give you any stat boost. There isn't much diversity when it comes to the gear and stuff, just cosmetic really. But the main reason I made this analysis and review was so I can fully see this game and understand why I never finished it and wanted to see what the end game was actually like. Now that I have seen and played through the game in its entirety, I can project my entire experience onto you guys. And if you want to play for yourself, that's cool. I'll have the link to the Discord that you can acquire the stuff in the description if you really want to play the game. But if you don't have the time and are so curious about it, then this analysis is mainly made for you guys. And if you guys want a little bit more of my FusionFall experience, you can go check out my entire edited down playthrough of the game. Most of all the walking and flying and boring stuff has been cut out. Is that man? What's he doing in here, dude? Is he simping? Is he gonna fight me off? Like, no, that's my toxic green bitch.
Can't you see I'm busy?
I gotta kill this girl. For his own good. And for all of our own good. Oh, she's tall. Oh, she stunned me. She stunned me. Number 1. I had to do what I had to do, man. So if you want to go check that out, you can at the second channel, the NAST Cast. And if you want some even more FusionFall stuff, there was actually a one-shot FusionFall manga that came out when this game dropped years ago. It's only one issue, but pretty much covers the events of the beginning where like Mojo Jojo just destroys Buttercup and the beginning of the invasion and Dexter rallying the troops and talking about the plan to fight Fuse. It's interesting and it would have been cool if it continued, but it is like an actual like manga, so go check that sucker out. Pretty interesting. Well, yeah, guys, this has been my experience with FusionFall, and probably my largest nasty analysis to date, as well as just any edited video I've ever made. It took me a long time to play through this game, write the script, and edit the video, so if you enjoyed it, make sure to like and perhaps even subscribe. With all that said and done, I bid you guys farewell, and until next time, when I play through a lot shorter of a game and analyze it, I will see you then. I hope you guys have a nasty night, and peace out.
Each mission you have to finish.
I'd bring out my cannon, I start firing.
If you don't think fast and like attack, then you're pretty much a goner.
It goes, when he goes, and then he went like this, and I went like down this side.
Back to back, back to back.
He pulls out his nano, he stuns the monster.
And, went, and then I slashed it, and it got defeated.
FusionFall. All 36 levels, all 36 nanos, all free. Rated everyone 10 and up.
God, Courage looks... He does not look right in this art style, man. His teeth look so nasty.